Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our webinar. I'm RC from BuildOps, and I run our brand and content. And I'm super psyched to have Rob and Justin here today. Quick, before I even do any kind of introduction, I really want to show you how the burrito is made here. Uh, I'm testing out something new here with the webinar. It's a whole new system with Zoom. It's all fancy, and it's pretty fancy. So you might experience some interesting technological adventures, perhaps, when we do screen sharing, what have you, but it's all in the sake of learning and what have you. So got to take chances. So we'll see how we see fit. Anyway, yes. So I'm RC. Great to meet you all. I run brand content and our webinar programming here at BuildOps. In case you're not familiar, BuildOps is mission control for commercial contractors. So one platform for your service, for your project work, dispatch, invoice, name it all. And so we're super psyched about this topic. Actually, for context, we did a webinar like this a few months ago on data centers specifically. It's very popular, but as we'll talk about a little bit later today, data centers is not necessarily the only kind of big ticket market project out there. So we're going to dive into that based on regions, what have you. Before we get into anything more specific, I do want to hand it over to the panelists to just introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Rob Harris, please.
Hi, Rob Harris with H. Kelly, Executive Vice President in charge of business development, and been with the company for about 30 plus years. Been in the construction industry for 35, and yeah, excited to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And Justin.
Yeah, I'm really excited, RC, that you let Rob go first because now anything that I say is completely irrelevant. So next time, let me go first, right? We'll kind of start and then we'll finish, with the prime rib instead of start with the prime rib and then trying to serve salad after that. But my name is Justin Wetherby. I've been here at BuildOps for nearly 6 years now, but I've been in construction technology for 12. And through that time, when I first got into this, there were no mobile devices or apps. There were no, it wasn't cloud based. It was all like on premise. I mean, Rob's been in the business to remember like having to update stuff with the CD. And, I mean, the big
Oh
technology
yeah.
for me back in the day was the digital camera with the whiteboard, right? And you'd white out on the whiteboard and stuff. So
Yeah.
we were doing the math the other day, and over the 12 years, if you assume X amount of calls per day, had over 10,000 meetings with contractors. So that's kind of my background. While, obviously not executive vice president or been in the trades 30 years, I am in a unique position where I've had the opportunity to chat with just about everybody out there. Now, I'll be honest with you, I probably missed a couple of those meetings, but we made it to most of them. So appreciate the opportunity. Rob, one, to talk to you, and then RC obviously
Yeah.
getting the invite back as well.
Awesome. For what it's worth, also, there's two of us from the Pacific Northwest on this call today, so representing the upper left USA. Go
Go
Mariners.
Hawks.
Hey, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Win-win right there. All right. So again, one of the technological issues is going to be when I screen share. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here, so we'll see about that in a moment. But also, most of this conversation is going to be about the talking heads here more than anything else. It's not a presentation slide deck presentation by any means. Before we move forward, just a couple housekeeping things. Hopefully, you guys do see a Q&A in your Zoom box, if you will. If you have any questions, comments, or compliments for the host, then submit the Q&A and I'll be monitoring them for you. And then we'll have some time at the end of the session to answer those Q&As. And then you should see around 3 polls pop up on your screen. If you can answer those polls, we'll respond to those and basically change the course of the direction of the conversation based on those polls. So your input would be greatly appreciated there. Moving forward, here's where, I've been delaying this a little bit, but here we go. We're going to go for a screen share and see what happens here. Okay. First, first. Oh yeah, look at that. You see me, Justin. You talk.
Well, I'm talking right now. I don't know if anything's changing,
I
but
don't love it. I don't love it. So we're gonna look at it just like this. Forget it, guys. All right. So we're gonna look at the deck here. Then I'm gonna pull off this deck, and we're gonna talk about the 3 heads right now, in a moment. So, first, why are we here? Basically, let's start the obvious, right? The work is out there, guys. So data centers alone drove 70% of all private non-residential spending growth from 2024 March, 2025 March, August 25 alone, 51 commercial projects, over 100 million, so on and so forth. And it's not just, I think this is pretty important, not just data centers, but hospitals, universities, government campuses. That's not even the exhaustive list, by the way, of these kind of large commercial projects are out there. So honestly, the question is not necessarily like, is there enough work, but whether or not you should say yes to it. So that's what we're going to be diving into a little bit. I already aforementioned this. I'm going to stop sharing right now so we can see our lovely faces a little bit better here. I already mentioned this before, but Rob is from the great region of the Pacific Northwest. For you, with hot markets and big projects, like, what is that looking like in the upper left USA versus the rest of the country?
Yeah, frankly, the economy in the Pacific Northwest is not great. We have been through large semiconductor pushes in manufacturing with Intel that have stopped. We have been through very large colo and enterprise level mission critical projects that are slowed by a lack of power ability. And outside of healthcare, which remains robust in some cases, the Pacific Northwest is very slow. So for our company, it's our ability to get on our horse and ride in some traditional geographies and some non-traditional geographies to uh, to sustain a healthy backlog of work and profitability that goes with it.
You'd mentioned before with in a prep call with me about big five enterprise data centers owning massive pipelines over the next 5 years, not even counting colos. Can you talk a little bit more about those big five enterprise data center owners?
Yeah, there's hundreds of billions of dollars that is on the books to be constructed in the United States right now for more mission critical work. And with that, you're talking about the Metas and the Amazons and the Apples and the two other names that are slipping my mind right now that represent that big five, but they are aggressively making real estate plays to find this space and get facilities built that they can occupy. And in some cases, they're doing that independently on their own. In other cases, they're working with partners like JLL who are providing those real estate plays for them, and then looking at building out the capacity inside those spaces. The challenge today will continue to be power supply for these facilities.
Mm.
However many megawatts these are planning to be it a gig factory in Reno, Nevada, or a 30 megawatt build out in Portland, Oregon for a colo. They're all challenged today on power supply. And another separate market opportunity that's going to come as a byproduct of that will be opportunities for industrial contractors like J.H. Kelly to not only build the internals of a mission critical facility, but build potential power supply that looks like anywhere from a simple cycle to a fuel cell application. So a secondary market is developing with this continued growth and demand for AI space and the power supply to meet it. So decentralized power solutions are rapidly coming our way, and we'll have, frankly, great success in states that don't get wrapped around the axle on permitting requirements,
Mm,
like the Pacific Northwest tends to.
interesting. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Justin.
absolutely. I've definitely been keeping my eye on the development as far as the decentralized power, and the battery technology is getting to the point now where it's actually falling into these budgets. And I think we've got a real unique set of like macro circumstances coming together that's going to allow for these projects to continue to move forward, where historically, there's been a bottleneck and to your point, it's, power to get through there. But the dispersed power generation with the on-site battery technology, I think is going to be another big one. And I also see a lot of folks, which is new, instead of relying on the utility for the power, investing in their own power generation. Speaking of the Pacific Northwest, my uncle owns a handful of lumber mills, right, in the like Eugene and Roseburg area. And one big thing that they're doing is generating their own power on site with some of the waste products that they have, right? And so, because again, any of those real power intensive um, operations, sometimes we can't count on the municipality to make the investments to make that happen. And Rob, I don't know if you agree, but I'm seeing a lot of private businesses sort of own that part of it as much as they can.
Yeah, distribution plays heavily into the equation as far as what's the ability of the grid to handle the distribution of the power too. And in certain geographies, you've got large entities that own distribution, be it in our case BPA or Puget Sound Energy or Portland General Electric. Are like the three big power groups in our neck of the woods, and the lines can either handle the increased flow of power or they can't. And then you involve, upgrading lines and taking a tremendous amount of capital and time to do that in order to wheel the power. So a decentralized solution, I think, is ideal. Um, Once again, the challenge is going to be what does it look like? If it's a fuel cell and a hydrogen-based clean energy production system, then permitting is going to be relatively simple. And whether you're making that power and you're storing it along with the battery application to provide some redundancy with that, there's I think that's going to be happening with these facilities because they're going to need some level of redundancy. On top of that, you're looking at small nuclear reactors, SMRs are hitting the market, and a lot of discussion around it. We live in a region where nuclear power has been part of our culture in Hanford, and there's discussions about Microsoft buying Hanford and using it for their own consumption. I personally have a wager with a John Burgoyne, our business development director, on how long it's going to take before one of these actually is in production and is feeding a mission critical facility. But I think we're going to see all different applications of power supply, power storage. The other thing that really hinders the process with putting in decentralized power is that if you've got a gig factory and that's 1,000 megawatts, right? That's a big plant. Well, to build a 1,000 megawatt combined cycle power plant is a challenge from a permitting standpoint. Whether it needs to be combined cycle or not is debatable. It probably could just be simple cycle because you're not doing anything with the steam. There's no application for the steam unless you're spinning another turbine, and that's when you make it combined. But the challenge is the big turbines are taking 3 years to get through production right now. Literally, if you try to build something with a large turbine, you're probably 2 to 3 years out on supply on large turbines. That's why you're seeing all these small um, built in a Connex type power applications being talked about. I think there's a plant being built in Texas that's 336 megawatts that has 800 Connex built simple cycle power plants being constructed or set down and connected to feed that plant. So, I mean, just do the math on that. That's an awful lot of
Yeah.
independent power producing vessels in order to meet a 336 megawatt demand. But that's what it's going to look like because you can't get something big for years. So there's a bottleneck in supply chain right there that's also affecting your ability to decentralize on a larger scale.
Yeah. I want to pull in the poll results, by the way, for the first poll question that we asked, which is basically when larger or more complex jobs come up, what's your biggest concern? Uh, Surprisingly or not, I'm not quite sure. No one said that they don't really chase those kind of jobs today. So everyone in attendance today are chasing these jobs. So I think that's a big takeaway here. Evenly split between protecting margin and not losing money and having enough people bandwidth to deliver. Not surprising. Any thoughts on that, Justin, on the results there?
Yeah, definitely when it comes to protecting margin on those larger jobs, the risk becomes larger, right? And obviously, if you've been in the industry a long time, like Rob, you understand that this isn't like it's not all benefit without a lot of risk. And for some of these companies that are pushing heavily into some of these larger projects that maybe they haven't done it before, you've got to have really tight cost controls because unfortunately, yeah, I mean, I've seen it myself, my background being in construction as well. But unfortunately, I've seen it with some customers who are like then rebuilding. One project that kind of goes sideways can really hamper your ability to continue business. And so it's at least from what I've seen on my side, sometimes the cost controls are very weak, and that's okay with some smaller work. You can get away with a couple of them going south on you and not realizing towards the end. But some of these larger projects, once that momentum has been built, it's so difficult to shift it back one way or another. I guess, Rob, like when we're talking about those insights, I assume having those insights on the first 25% of the project, you can actually steer that in the right direction, opposed when you're coming into the tail end of this thing and, essentially the boulder's already in motion.
Yeah, yeah. It's called span of control by a lot of people in our industry, and when you sit down with, it could be Apple or it could be Micron, and you're bidding work to a general contractor or direct to the owner in some cases, and it's a job that's going to require 10,000 craft in some cases to build. So what's your individual span of control, right? What is your ability to supply skilled manpower and be consistent with your execution and productivity and track the holy living snot out of it while you're doing
Mhm.
it from a productivity and installation standpoint. And obviously the integration of outside manufacturing today plays a heavy, heavy role in trying to get as many hours out of the field and into a highly productive and safe outside manufacturing environment. So you hear that is a buzzword that's it's not just a buzzword anymore. It's the norm. And these projects that are being done in Virginia or Ohio or Pennsylvania, which are now the whole Rust Belt is the hot spot right now for the mission critical environment. So it's they've built like crazy in Virginia in that area, DC. They've built like crazy in the Northwest. They're building like crazy in Texas, and now the Rust Belt's gonna explode. And it used to be when you got calls from Google or Apple or Microsoft who were interested in looking at direct buying outside manufacturing modules for their plants. Proximity was a big part of the discussion. Cost of labor was part of the discussion. FOB was part of the discussion. And what's the
Mhm.
ability of a union contractor based in the Pacific Northwest to be able to supply that throughout the Midwest or the East Coast? Probably not practical. That's not the case today.
Yeah.
They are looking for manufacturers and people with sophisticated OSM capabilities and the ability to guarantee delivery and certainty to their projects. And cost is not the driver today like it was yesterday. So if you have that type of capability in place, you can command a reasonable margin. They're still going to get into your business and control that. A lot of the work's going to be done out of the gate, potentially on a cost plus basis, and then opportunity to roll it up into a lump sum is another way to try to build margin into the project. But once again, you're taking risk on as a self-performing mechanical to do that. So when you do that, know that there should be some reward there if you're taking that risk, and there's that opportunity to sustain or increase margin when you make that shift from a cost plus to a lump sum opportunity once the engineering has advanced enough for you to be able to quantify the job in its entirety and take that risk.
Well, let's talk go no go, because I think during our prep call you had a great conversation or a great note that really stuck with me on that. So I flashed up something on the screen. I'm going to share it one more time just to make sure everyone sees it. A little bit of what we're talking about here. It's not necessarily like can we, but actually like should we based on these terms. I talked to you a little bit about this, like what does a go no go process look like? Like before you even like dive into something, what are the first few things you should be looking at? And just to cut to the chase, basically, the thing that you said, which I think we should all live by beyond just this conversation, is that one strong no is enough to walk. So it shouldn't be
Yeah.
necessarily like a checklist of no's and like all of a sudden you hit a threshold and you're like, okay, like that's enough. But one strong no is enough. So what are these strong indicators of like, if that's a no, then it's a freaking no. Like
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
go on.
It's a simple term. I remember a sales training course I took in Los Angeles 25 years ago. It was called Go for the No. And that it was really just about that. And do you have the team to responsibly um, estimate the work accurately? Do you have the team that's going to mobilize on site, be this project in your backyard or 4 states away, to manage the labor resources? And then do you have the craft supervision to manage the performance of the trade in the field? And do you understand what the productivity rate is going to look like versus what it is in your backyard and what you're used to versus what you're going to get 4 states away? It could be 1.5, 2.0 to 3.0 on a productivity factor, that you need to work into that estimate, because that's what's happening in the productivity market when these, like Reno, so saturated with so much work going on right now. Labor productivity is not traditionally what it is, or maybe what you've been used to. So you got to go into it eyes wide open and understand what you're going to get, and that's when you decide to take risk. Once you feel like you have full ownership of what's accomplished or what you can accomplish from a productivity standpoint in that given geography. But once again, any one of those things is a no. It's a no. We're not going to create an unresponsible estimate. We're not going to go try to do tens of millions of dollars worth of work without the right project management or superintendent or general foreman and foreman that are going to run those pipe fitters in the field. And we're not going to do it if the contract's fraught with ambiguous and one-sided terms that only favor the owner. It's you got to create a partnership, and if you're really good at what you do, they're going to want to accommodate you on some level.
Justin, bringing in the poll here right now. So the question on the screen was, how structured is your go, no-go process on large bids today? And 50% of respondents said that it's consistent leadership review, yes, but no formal tooling. Is that, how's that ring to you, basically?
Oh, I mean, let's be real. There's half the folks are lying out there. There's no way half the folks have got those processes in place, unless it certainly could be. But the what I'd like to throw in there that Rob mentioned is like, hey, if you don't have experience doing this work, then that could be a big no. And so when you do get experience and you've run projects in the similar vein or with similar customers, you can go back and look at some of your historicals, because as part of that scoring metric is, how did we do on other types of projects like this? And what you'll find, and I think contractors realize this a little behind the curve, is that your production skills will evolve over time. Like 35 years ago, we may have been able to do these certain things really, really well. But as the crew changes, as the technologies change, that work might not be as profitable to you as it used to be. And now you've got a different crew and a different crew makeup and different conditions that may make different types of work profitable for you. So as part of your scoring, as part of your formal tool, I want to make sure that we're looking at some of those historicals and revisiting those often enough that we're not just making assumptions because we did this 5 years ago and it worked out fine for us, but maybe we see a trend that type of work is slowly becoming less profitable for us. And then knowing that might be one of those hard no's you got to walk away from.
I realize that we're coming up, we want to shoot this to be as close to 30 minutes as possible to respect your time. So I want to actually skip over to one more slide and one more talking point so that we respect everyone's time. I'm going to shoot up on the screen right now. This particular slide here is talking about pre-construction, where margin is won or lost. We talked a little bit about pre-con just now, Justin. So wonderful job. You are natural at this job, by the way. So let's dive into this a little bit on what the slide is. So basically it's about 3 ideas: getting engaged early on, showing up as a collaborator, not just as a commodity. Rob, that's straight out of some inspiration you told me I thought was really cool. And using discipline in pre-con to shape scope, delivery, and risk allocation. If you guys want to dive into that a little bit, I'm outside of my scope right now. So Rob, want to talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah, I think we all love to have an opportunity to parallel a project with an engineering team and an owner and really be a valued partner. Kelly, we don't self-perform much on the discipline engineering side. So we bring that value engineering, constructability, OSM mentality to what we do, be it electrical or mechanical or anything else. So if you are at the table early enough and can shape an approach to work, which takes much of the work out of the field and into the OSM environment, I think you can really influence schedule and productivity on the job site by, once again, eliminating man hours on the job site and executing that work in a very controlled environment. So if we can get involved early, there's whether you go through a gate process or you go through an FEL process, many of the industries have adopted some old acronyms from what were originally from oil and gas development projects and refineries. And they continue to be used because a lot of these people have migrated from oil and gas into technology. Good project people that know how to build plants and are becoming part of the new market. So if you can get in and shape that and steer how the work's going to get executed, and that's a tremendous opportunity to influence the risk on the project and how your company fits. We're all limited on some level,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether it's fabrication, on hand construction, on the job site. We're all limited, so we have to be responsible to those limitations. And your first priority is the customer you have, but at the same time, you got to get that next job. So we're all hustling to find the next project while we're working to successfully conclude the work we have in hand.
I have a poll up here. How do you track bids, project risk, and lessons learned across the business today? Right now, Justin, I'm not sure if you see the poll unless I actually end it or not, but in case you don't see it, the majority, 80% so far, track with spreadsheets and email and shared drives. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, gosh, that's a hot button issue for me, right? Because back whenever I was running work, that's exactly how we were doing it, right? And we're talking, 12, 15 years ago at this point. Now, what we'd like is to keep those similar processes in place, but giving us a better tool to do that where it's not so much manual entry every step of the way. Like if my guy out in the field flags something, I need that to hit my potential change order log,
Yeah.
right? Or if I update, right? We get approved change orders. Let's update my schedule value, update my WIP report, update my forecast. Historically, everybody is kind of doing those same steps, but it's been really tough to find a solution that kind of brings it all together. Obviously, you can see it in the background here. I'm going to toot BuildOps horn, do a great job when it comes to tracking that full cycle job costing to tie that back into our go, no go. Are we going to even take the work? Now that we've won the work, we need to protect the mothership. We need to minimize risk because ultimately, Rob, back in the day, it used to be about building things. Honestly, good project management's now about mitigating risk. And while you're building something, also looking behind you and making sure that you're covered. Because sometimes you get run over by something that wasn't even in your exact purview, in your exact span or control. But if you weren't covered, the outcome is essentially the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, these projects are going to be fraught with opportunities for the integration of liquidated damages and other things that we're going to have to take responsibility for. You have to be smart about your approach to managing those. Don't be afraid to push back, cap them, be reasonable. At the same time, the owners are buying a significant amount of equipment, and they're all experiencing legal egg time issues with supply. So, the chillers aren't coming. They're a month late. You put your owner on notice. We're not responsible for any LDs associated with the project going forward because you just kind of bailed us out on on a
Yeah.
on a critical path item that's not going to be here for a month. But that's what they do, and good notification, a good relationship with good communications required, and we're all pulling on the same end of the rope to get the job done. But if you're limited by supply of equipment and you just can't physically get the work done in time, then that's going to be on them.
Hey, again, I want to respect everyone's time, so I want to put up this screen right here. I don't see any questions in. I'll stop the share in a moment and look at the questions again to make sure that I'm not missing anything. But I did want to pull up the screen because Justin alluded to it, of course, with the lovely logo in the background and on his hat and on his shirt, and he's representing real well there. The BuildOps takes a lot of this pain out from you. So if you want to learn a little bit more, you can scan over there. You can talk to good, intelligent folks who have actually lived the experience like you did, just like Justin will be on the other end to help you walk through some of that. So. I'm going to pull this down and I will also email everyone a recording of this video as well as talking points and like a fancy blog article version, but talking points as well. So you can kind of share that with whomever you want to. And then I'll have links to where you can get more information from BuildOps as well. Yeah, still don't see any questions. So we're going to wrap it up here. Again, if you have any questions, email, you can respond back to me or go to buildops.com and go directly and to talk to good folks like Justin. I do want to call out specifically I don't want to, I mean, bald head people unite, but it is not every day that we get someone like Rob Harris on our webinars. This is truly, honestly, a pleasure. The intelligence that he has and that he showed today is unmatched. So Rob, honestly, from the bottom of BuildOps' little chevron heart, thank you so much for joining us today. Justin, I mean, sure, Justin.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. We got the prime rib and we got the salad. Hey, Rob, thanks for being the prime rib on this one, buddy. Appreciate you always.
It was fun. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care, y'all. Bye.